going to share my screen. So Phil, just let me know, or anyone, if you can see this. Thumbs up, Phil.
All good.
Okay. All right. Phil Flora, our Director of Sales and Marketing, Vice President of Sales and Marketing, is behind the scenes making sure that we are running smoothly. So thank you, Phil, for that. So
the great Wizard of Oz.
So thanks everybody for joining us for another Leopard webinar. We know it's the summer, but I do believe that people still want to learn during the summer. And even if you're not here for the live program, you can watch a recording of this program. Also, please make sure to follow us on YouTube and also on LinkedIn. I will put a link to all of this in the chat. I will also put a link to each of our LinkedIn URLs so you can follow and connect with each of the speakers here today. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just start off a little bit about why we're here, what we're doing, and then Laura's going to speak about research, which I love to delve into. I'm a research geek. And I am, for those of you who don't know, I'll introduce myself a little bit later, but I am outsourced CMO to a number of mid-sized law firms, and I was in-house CMO for a mid-sized firm of 75 lawyers. And one of the things, I was in-house at big firms for years, and I love actually working at small and mid-sized law firms. I think there's such opportunity and challenges, but in a great way. And we all have to do more with less, but in a also good way. It makes us be more resourceful. I do think that marketing is so important, and we're not just going to talk about marketing today, but I want to say, like, you know, everything we're doing should really be from an ROI standpoint, a lead generation standpoint, a marketing standpoint. And when you're not a household name, marketing is so important, and we do have to be creative with doing more with less. And big firms simply have more of everything. They have more money. They have more resources. I worked at a firm that had a 4-person fax department. So that is literally 4 people who used to just fax all day long. Guess who does the faxes now? I do my own faxes, and I do everything from, you know, strategy to the clerical stuff, but I love being more hands-on. They have more press mentions, they have more lawyers, they have more opportunity to recruit because they have more deep pockets, they can pay bigger salaries, and they've got more deals. So that doesn't mean we're at a disadvantage, but I will say that the Great Resignation has been tough for smaller and mid-sized law firms, because law firms, big firms, have been pulled out all the stops, and we're seeing this steady number of jobs in legal industry. About, I think the Leopard data last time I checked was hovering around 12,000 open jobs. So as much as they get filled, a new one opens up, and certain practices are ebbing and flowing. And we'll actually be releasing a research report about this shortly with a mid-year report. But what I'll say on this is, I'm finding a lot of my clients are having some of their people poached to bigger firms. Some of my firms are having their people go off and start their own firms. So every and anybody is a potential sort of target for losing your people, just like big firms are dealing with it too. But big firms have literally pulled out all of the stops. Plus, some folks are going in-house, and we know that corporations are also pulling out all the stops. If you want more information about the Great Resignation, there is a webinar on this topic, as well as a research report. So a lot of us are outsourcing. I just mentioned, I had no idea there was a market for an outsourced CMO. So that's what I'm doing, but I'm seeing people outsource data. A lot of people, including, I think it's now up to 50% of the AmLaw 200 use Leopard Solutions for their data needs, on data for marketing, data for CI, and data for recruiting. So think about the things that you could outsource, especially when you are a team of 1 or 2. I work directly with COOs. I work directly sometimes with lawyers. Certain functions you don't have to do in-house, data management, those sorts of things, marketing. Let your lawyers focus on what they do really well. And are we headed for a recession? So this is the $1 million question. And we will talk about this in a little bit, because this is probably something that's going to affect us. And I will tell you not to pull back on your marketing, not to pull back on your recruiting. In fact, I would tell you to do more of these things. This is a time to invest in the tools that you need and get your systems down pat now. And what does this mean now? I'm telling you guys, get your ducks in a row. We might not see this but inflation is continuing. And I think we just want to all be prepared for what's to come. Who knew that we would be where we are 2 years ago with the pandemic? Okay. So I've got a few. Oh, I also want to say, so when I picked this slide, I didn't realize that it looked like the client, this is supposed to be a client being inundated with too much information. I didn't realize the client looked naked. Let's pretend the client is wearing a suit. So clients are being inundated with information. This also is a representation of your people internally at a mid-sized firm that have information. What do we do with all the data? Sometimes it's I call it analysis paralysis. I've had so many subscriptions to so many things that I haven't known what to actually do with it, or I've given it to people in the leadership roles who've been like, well, what does this mean actually, Stefanie? So we're going to talk about that and how to actually use data and CI more effectively. And I will send this to anyone who would like a copy of this, but I'm not going to go through this. These are just some marketing and business development strategies that I think work really well for small and mid-sized law firms. Make these things a priority. Don't get stuck on your awards and spend hours and resources on awards you don't necessarily have any chance of winning. Be strategic with your sponsorships. Try to get speaking slots. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. I think educational content is probably the best thing a mid-sized firm can do. Client alerts, webinars, and then repurpose those. And then you'll see all of these things here. If you don't have an alumni relations program, you need one. If you even have 2 lawyers that have left your firm, whether you've been around 5 years or 10 years or 100 years, you need an alumni relations program because they are a source of recruiting, business development, goodwill, and a whole bunch of other things that we can talk about another time. And you'll see here a lot of other things, okay? But now look at the last point. Don't stop marketing in good times or bad. I would add, don't stop recruiting in good times or bad. Okay, so now I'm going to ask our speakers to introduce themselves and take a breath. Michelle?
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here today. Michelle Doran. I'm a COO for Murtha, Cullina. It's a mid-market firm with 5 offices and just under 100 attorneys. It's a Northeast regional business-focused firm. I was hired post-pandemic to help with strategic growth, recruiting, and just really helping us become an employer of choice. My past history is larger, a bit larger firm, Dorsey and Whitney, obviously much larger than Murtha, but within the whole market, I would say still probably a mid to large size firm. There I supervised up to 8 offices in Asia, London, Dallas, East Coast, pretty high revenue generating area, and heavily involved in our recruiting committees and associate council efforts. So I think that's what hopefully I'll bring to the table today.
Great, Michelle. I'm excited to hear from your standpoint. Joel, tell us about you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Joel Greenwald. I'm the managing partner of Greenwald Doherty. We are a labor and employment law firm that's national, but a boutique one. We've got 11 lawyers. And we are really always trying to innovate as much as possible in terms of our service offerings to our clients. We represent just the business side, so we're employment lawyers for companies. And I would say that the focus of our business is on prevention. So whereas we litigate and do Department of Labor audits and things like that for companies, a lot of effort is spent in the advice and counsel arena. And specifically, and I guess I'll be talking about it, a lot of clients are on a subscription program with us as well.
Okay, great. It's also really helpful to have the managing partner perspective. So we've got the COO, the managing partner perspective. I hope to bring that CMO perspective. And then we also have the very important data piece. So Laura, tell us about you.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Laura Leopard. I am the CEO and a founder of Leopard Solutions, and we are really excited to share our data and what we've discovered and things we've learned about mid-sized law firm and the market.
Okay, great. So Okay, I think I said who I am, but I was working in big law for 20 years as a marketer. And then I started my own business about 2.5 years ago. And I work solely with mid-sized law firms and legal service providers on marketing strategy and social media strategies. So I think this is going to be a really great discussion today. So Laura, I'm going to stop sharing and let you share yours slides.
Now it's going to be my turn to talk a mile a minute. So try to keep up with me.
Yeah. So while you're getting your slides up, I'll tell you where some of the other people are from on our webinar: Houston, Kansas City, some more Boston folks, Boston, Newton, and we've also got, Atlanta really representing, and Minnesota. All right. So glad you guys joined us. All right, Laura.
Okay. Well, to compete in any market, you really have to know the players, right? And you have to know what they're doing so that you can analyze your own strengths and weaknesses correctly. We know that big law has two stubborn problems: recruitment and retention. And the root of which could lay with the billable hour, but we also know it really lays with that work-life balance, that it's a big problem for recruitment and retention in big law. The billable hour itself has made equity partners rich, but at the cost of that work-life balance. And they're currently caught in a talent war that is costing them millions of dollars. They are throwing money at laterals, and that will eventually, or could eventually, eat away at some of the profits that they reaped in 2021. And they are recruiting attorneys from mid-sized firms as well as each other, and eating into those mid-sized firms' retention rates. So we're going to look at how you can compete. So here we wanted to look at growth loss patterns across practices. Mid-sized firms gained attorneys in two different fields, banking and trusts and estates, but they lost people in every other practice, with litigation being actually the big loss leader. So those mid-sized firms are in that green color there. The top 200 made large gains in corporate, litigation, real estate, and banking. They only had a couple of areas where they lost some ground. So I think it's clear that a lot of the people lost from those mid-sized firms did travel over to the top 200, but this is a chart that needs some attention paid to it. So the top 200 are losing a significant portion of their ranks each year as they depart for greener pastures. So the largest recipients of these departures are corporate law departments and other law firms. So people going to corporations to work in-house, that's a pretty significant group. They're also moving to other law firms. We do have a number here. We don't know exactly, where they went to. They haven't come back on our radar, but these are numbers that are also really interesting too. So after they left a top 200 firm, 35.62% of women went back into a top 200 firm, 39.35% of men went back into a top 200 firm. And the rest of those who exited big law mainly went in-house, then they went to other law firms, then into government, and then just a small smattering of things, in between. And we all have known anecdotally, right, that people leave big law and they go to in-house because why? It's that work-life balance that those in-house companies offer. It's a slower pace of work. And if you're looking for that big change, they're beating their way, over into in-house. But if those mid-sized firms offered an option that helped address those issues, they really would have an edge in recruitment, and they would be able to grab all of those attorneys that are leaving big law. Everyone's first choice isn't to go into in-house. They're going there for a reason. They're going there for that work-life balance, right? Most of them really would have preferred to stay at a law firm. So if that problem could be solved, I think this could be a great recruiting option for mid-sized firms. So these are the exits from mid-sized firms. So what we just saw was everybody who left the top 200 firm, right? So now we're looking at mid-sized firm exits just in the last 12 months. So we do have a large number of unknown. That means they have not come back on our radar. They haven't gone to any of the 4,000 firms that we cover. They haven't gone into the 8,000 firms we have in our in-house database. They just have not turned up yet. And eventually they will. But most of the people that left mid-sized firms that have turned up in another workplace went to another law firm. A few of those, just about 1,400, went into big law. So these are where your folks are going. They're going to either another law firm. Some of them are being scooped into big law, and then a much smaller number ended up in an in-house company. And here we looked at, this is a new slide. So we looked at how long jobs were open, throughout these particular periods for both big, medium, and small firms. So medium is defined as firms with 25 to 100 attorneys in the US. Mid-sized firms, it took a little longer to fill jobs in both 2019 and 2020. But they closed their openings a bit more quickly than both the larger firms and the smaller firms in 2021, right? But in 2022, we sort of have a dead heat here. So this was just looking to see the average number of days jobs were open before they closed. And this can show you some of the challenges, that are faced by each particular firm grouping. Then we just wanted to look in our job database just to see how many current jobs were open per year. Of course, there's a lot of larger firms in our job database. If you are a mid-sized firm and we cover you, you have jobs on your website, you're in our job program. So all of this data is coming from our job program. But we do see an increase from 2020 and 2021, because right now in the database, there's 1,191 openings for those medium-sized firms, while large firms, that number has jumped dramatically. Now there's 8,047. So this really shows a still very tight job market. So a few months ago or earlier in the year, we did a survey for our webinar, Women Leaving Law, and we have a white paper imminently coming out about that same topic. And we asked them a lot of questions that I think are really relevant to what we're going to talk about today. So look at that purple color, right? This is very impactful. So we asked them, what was the most impactful reason that you left your job or you left your law firm? And if you look at purple, boy, these three areas really stick out: current job satisfaction, lack of flexibility, and work-life balance. And if you look very carefully, work-life balance is really number one. Current job satisfaction, 2, lack of flexibility, 3, career trajectory, number 4. Needing to stay home with children, that really was not applicable for a lot of the women that left their law firm during this period. That was not a problem for them. Everyone sort of suspected that was the issue with women leaving law firms in the pandemic, but for this group of women, that was not the case. What was really getting to them was that work-life balance and current job satisfaction. Then we asked them, what are your biggest frustrations in working at a law firm? So in this chart, this blue color means very frustrated. They are very frustrated because they do not feel supported at work. They are very frustrated by the work-life balance at the firm. Career trajectory, lack of flexibility in work environment, that was there too. Now let's just remember for a minute, right? So lack of flexibility is something that women have been asking for a very long time. But flexibility is more than just, I get to work from home a couple days a week. There's really more to it for women. But during COVID, there was more flexibility than ever, right? Because people were working remotely and people were working from home, but they still felt that there was a lack of flexibility, I guess, in other areas, and that work-life balance still had not balanced out. So just that working from home really didn't solve that problem. Oh yeah. So don't forget the somewhat frustrated is also a pretty large number too. So that's all of that speaks volumes. Then we wanted to look at ROI, the return on investment of associate hiring. And I was kind of surprised by this, and it showed that the mid-sized firm group success percentage was consistently lower than the percentage in big law. You know, we did a webinar about ROI not that long ago, and the ROI numbers for big law really wasn't very good, right? Especially if you go back, you know, a year or two where you get to see the real ROI results, because it's based on a 3-year period. But it was very surprising to see that the ROI for mid-sized firms was actually lower than big law. So retaining talent is key in this market. It should be easier to retain them than keep them, than get them, right? So if you do well at retention, you'll actually have to hire fewer people, which is something to remember. And then, especially because of the survey and the work that we just did, we also wanted to break it down, ROI, associates for women. And we know that big law has a lot of issues with retention and the promotion of women. And the mid-sized firm group does not seem to fare as well as the top 200 group. This was also surprising to me. So this could really be an opportunity to kind of change that gear if mid-sized firms really work on the retention of women. And keep in mind that is really due to work-life balance, to being happy in their work and having the firm be flexible. So this is for the top 200, and this was a shocking number that we came out with, last year. And this was the story, that it takes longer and longer and longer for an associate to make partner in big law. And the time to make partner for both laterals and entry-level hires has increased year over year. Laterals see the time that it has increased to make partner, from after laddering into a firm. Entry levels see that higher bar. It's really a dramatic increase. So if we look at the orange, these are those entry-level folks, and you can see it went from 1,352 days to 3,185 days to make partner. That is a shocking climb. For laterals, there has been more of a gentle sweep here, but for these folks, it's become almost an insurmountable climb. For them, what it should say is, I have a better chance of lateraling out of this firm and making partner somewhere else. So they're trying to adjust somewhat in big law, but this is a number that mid-sized firms can actually turn around and use to your advantage, right? This is hardly a recruitment tool for big law. This is something that mid-sized firms can turn around and use once they know what their own number is, and they can use that as a recruitment tool. We also know the lack of meaningful mentorship in larger firms causes a lot of retention issues. And it can also be, it's very difficult, to get that billable hour, conundrum done. They have to get business. They have to bill those hours. And for mentoring, they really can't bill for mentoring, and it takes time and effort to make mentoring work. So it's incredibly spotty at big law. You do have some firms that are committed to it. Some firms, it's more like lip service, and it can be incredibly rewarding for the firm, right? Smaller firms have an opportunity to mentor their younger and mid-level attorneys without a lot of the stumbling blocks that those larger firms face, right? And this is one key to retention and really helping that associate succeed at the firm, and could make all the difference. This is one of my favorite quotes about business. It is hard to beat your competition when you're copying them. So copying what big law does is not going to help you win in that retention game. It's not going to help you win in that recruiting game. So what I'm going to do is challenge you to think different. Think differently about how you're working and how you're recruiting. Soft data is also very important data. What do your employees hate? What do your clients despise? And time again, the answer is the billable hour. No one loves it. Most hate it. So why do it? You know, clients' number one pet peeve is the billable hour. And attorneys really hate it. It can cause them to leave their firm even though they love the work they do. It is a stubborn and persistent problem. It causes burnout, retention issues, and recruitment issues. That bill shall know no limits. This is the email that went viral when the DLA, from a DLA attorney when they were sued in a pay dispute. And Stephen Harper says that the billable hour really serves no one except the equity partners that profit from it. Associates are in hell, in their own words, and expected to bill hours that really give them no leeway. For clients, it could lead to mistakes, which could cause monetary losses. And they really hate the fact that every time they pick up the phone, they're trying to calculate how much money it's going to cost them for that phone call, right? So if you dare to think differently, there's a few ways you can do it. You can look at flat fee pricing. It's simple, it's understood, especially for things that you do over and over again. You know how much time it takes you to do. So to do this particular bankruptcy or this particular item, it's going to cost this flat fee. The customer feels good. You know exactly, how much these things normally take. It'll make you feel good too and secure. There's another one that I really like, and that's that subscription type model. You can look at what clients have paid you over time and see generally, how much money they bill and put them on a subscription basis. So then they're paying you monthly, they're paying you quarterly. The client feels good. He's not going to get some surprise bill at the end of the year or have some difficult month where legal fees were high. So this kind of helps stretches it out over time, and it's good for the firm and it's good for the client. And then there's also the value-based fee. Not a lot of people know this, but the billable hour, it wasn't that way forever. It just took over the world, but it used to be more of a value-based fee. The amount wasn't determined up front. And if the case was successful, the customer paid a little more. If it was not successful, they paid a little less, but everyone came out of that outcome feeling okay. There are different ways to do what you're doing. And if anyone wanted to try a different way and look at those alternate fee agreements, I think it would help in recruitment, it would help in retention, it would also help bring clients to your door. So let's just put this into focus. It takes 287 days longer on average to make partner in larger firms. But if you look at individual firms that impact your recruitment, the difference really could be much greater, right? So if you want a realistic path to partnership along with a better quality of life, those talented associates might just meet a path to your door. Averages are good and they're helpful at determining what's going on. But if you know how long it takes for your competitor or a firm where you want to go, get a lateral, how long it takes to make partner at that firm, and you can offer them a much shorter path, that's really going to grease that wheel to get that associate interested to coming to your mid-sized firm. Data can help you do that. If you look at percentages, mid-sized firms promotes more associates to partners than their big law counterparts, and by a big margin. So this, accompanied with the days to promotion, really should be a great recruiting tool. Each individual firm's numbers could be measured against the top 200 firm grouping for a really specific edge. You can use that data to your advantage. The top 200, I'm going back to this chart because this is something that sometimes gets lost. So if we look at all those people going into in-house, this could be a great pool of recruitment for you. But let's also remember this. The top 200 are losing 61% of men and 65% of women each year, right? So there's a whole group of people that leave big law and they're going to go somewhere. That's a big chunk of folks. And the in-house companies right now are benefiting most often. But This is your opportunity to change that statistic. You know, they go to in-house because of all the items we mentioned before in that work-life balance, right? No billable hour nightmare. Well, they would go to another firm if that firm met their needs. Most of those people in the surveys say that they would stay at a law firm if their work-life balance had been corrected, if those issues had been corrected. So they're only going to in-house for one thing. If you can change that one thing, then there's a whole group of people that you're going to be able to recruit as they leave big law and before they move into in-house. And this is so simple, right? It's like, be a good employer. And that means some of what we're talking about. There's not only do we have people now, thanks to the pandemic, that are really pushing for flexibility in the workplace, they're pushing for that work-life balance, but we also have a new crop of attorneys that are coming in that are saying, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I've had webinars where we talked about the whole big law model, right? If you've got a group of young people that are coming in as associates that are saying, I don't want to be partner because that doesn't seem like I'm winning a prize, that whole model begins to fall apart. Young people have a completely different outlook, and their number one thing that they care about is work-life balance. So with that one problem settled, you're going to do better with younger attorneys coming in. You'll do better with laterals coming out of the top 200. It really could give you a great recruitment edge. So this is a great article that was all about how mid-sized firms really should have an edge in this market, right? It's not all about dollars. And we've sat on sessions with people from mid-sized firms, and they feel powerless because of all the money that big law are throwing at these associates. But in this environment, and where we are today, it's not just about dollars. It's about all those other items too. And this is how you're different. You know, differentiate yourself from big law. Relationships are good business. And those big law firms have kind of a deficit in that area because they're so focused on that all important billable hour. Relationships with clients requires cultivation, time, and effort. And mid-sized firms can really capitalize on this by developing strong relationships with clients and being more of a true partner than just a billing machine. And that's how a lot of people feel about big law. All they do is bill, bill, bill. You know, I have a new attorney who recently asked me this question: do you really want me to do that for you? I think you could just do this if you just send an email. And that to me showed me that this attorney is going to be more of a business partner for me than somebody who's clocking every minute that we're on the phone. He wants me to make the right decisions, and he doesn't want to overbill me because he's looking at the long term. When would you hear somebody from a top 200 firm ask that? Off the cuff and off the clock calls and simple advice would really go a long way in cementing a business relationship with companies. So in our database, we use an algorithm that's based on historical data that can pinpoint who might be likely to make a move. And a firm can use this to play defense with that attorney and to make sure they're happy and not contemplating a move. So look up your own firm, look, the phones are ringing and emails are flying. It's really good policy to play defense with your team. Don't let the exit interview be the only interview you do with your attorneys. Interview them on a regular basis. Are you meeting their needs professionally and personally? Is their work-life balance in check? Don't be blindsided when they put in their notice. Try to head that off. Money isn't everything, right? This is one of my favorite quotes. Dennis shared this with us on a webinar we did last year. And that is, recruit your existing attorneys every day. That is how you can successfully play defense in retention. Young attorneys are not taught that they are salesmen in law school. They have no idea that this is going to be part of the job. And they're not taught that early in their careers either. It just kind of dawns on them later that they have been expected to be building that book of business, and they really haven't started. Just doing good work doesn't get you very far in big law. Helping attorneys leverage their networks and giving them tools that help them to get and retain business is both imperative for the firm and the attorney. Now, this is an example of a firm-wide connection report, and this is for a mid-sized firm. And we were looking for connections in different companies, and boy, we found quite a few. I think this is a firm that has about 100 attorneys at it. And so what we do is just put it in, we put your firm in, we look up by industry, we see how many people in your firm has contacts, and then it drills down to show the actual connection points. So there are high, medium, low connections. And here you see that Alex and Keegan went to the same law school and graduated in the same year. So he can reach out and reestablish that connection and begin to use that to get business out of Keegan's company. Think local. This is another way to differentiate yourself. You know, you have many advantages by being a local player in your community, where local knowledge really, really matters, you know, in real estate and infrastructure, construction, gaming, environmental issues, education, just to name a few. And then having those strong ties to the local community can really make a big difference. Sponsor that little league team. Get out there and do something in the community and be a part of that community. And it really helps when people start thinking about who they're going to give their business to. Leverage your alumni network. Whether you build your network or you buy a product like our alumni tracker, you can leverage that alumni that have moved to an in-house company or even to other firms for business opportunities. Some may want to return home. You know, just keeping in touch, offering events, keeping that pipeline open can really bring great rewards. And this is true if you have 5 attorneys or if you have 150 attorneys. And we leverage our attorney database with over 4,200 law firms and our in-house database with over 8,000 companies in it to really help keep these lists up to date, even for mid-sized firms like this one. Mid-sized firms should build and deploy a mentorship program, a really structured program where young attorneys and laterals are paired with the firm partner. It not only paves the way for success, but it roots the attorney into the firm. I've talked to several law firm partners who are lifers at their firm because of the strong support the mentorship program gave them. Make this a success story for your firm. We're talking here about that soft data that we have collected. And what we have heard time and time again is that this is a game changer for the firm if it's really employed with fervor, right? Not just lip service, but it's really employed. It can be a big success story. Using tools to help you understand the market nationwide and in your own backyard can help you predict where growth may happen. Measuring your firm against competitors is important to know if you're doing as well as you think you are, or if you need to improve. Knowing where you stand among your peer firms is really important. You know, we benchmark every data point that we have just in order to give users the best insight possible. Seeing how the data changes over time is really important as well. We have seen firms decline and then just rise from the ashes, but they made decisions that turned that trajectory around, and more than likely, they use data to do it. Now, if we look at firms by location and what they offer, you really could see an opportunity there, right? The mid-sized firm group in Austin in this chart has made a really large bet on litigation, but it trails in its focus on corporate work. And if we bring small firms into the mix, we can see that mid-sized firms lead in litigation with both firm groups, but they only have slightly more emphasis on corporate work than their smaller firm competitors. They focus slightly more on healthcare work, and intellectual property might be an area for growth. So analyzing the market per city along with state and countrywide can help firms determine patterns for possible growth. Now, this is sliced by geography, but this can be sliced by practice as well. So very quickly, these are the actionable items that we are putting forth as a way to help mid-sized law firms in this really incredibly tight, difficult market. Just consider offering alternative fee arrangements. Make work-life balance important to your firm. That could be a huge game changer. Focus on recruiting people leaving big law, because there's a lot of them. Build strong relationships with clients, build a mentorship program to strengthen ties and success potential, analyze the market to find growth potential, and then build on that local strength. That's something you could really excel in, and use and build a strong alumni network. Again, whether you're a firm of 5 or 150, that could really be a game changer as well. And that's it.
Okay, so there's a lot here. I'm surprised at some of the data, and I'm wondering what our panelists think. So Michelle, let's start with you. Was anything surprising to you or confirmed things you already thought? What did you think of Laura's data points?
Yeah, as I was preparing for this panel and I'm looking at the slides and I'm like, Laura's leaving nothing left for me to say, because I agree 100% with where we are today. And maybe I could just add a little bit of color. What I'm really seeing and have seen in the last couple of years is that there's a tremendous amount of burnout, which has changed the landscape of how we manage law firms. And, you know, we have traditionally relied on partners so heavily to mentor and develop and train associates. And, you know, today, two still very hot topics are remote work, how often to be in the office, when to be in the office. And I hear partners say, well, the associates are telling us that, you know, they want to be in the office, they want to work, you know, they want to be mentored, and this is their opportunity. What they're not hearing in the message is the unsaid words that we want you to be in the office with us.
Yes.
And we want you to be in the office on the same days that we are. And so there really has to, you know, today there has to be a lot more coordination and collaboration, and there has to be a systematic approach to things that traditionally happened organically. And so, you know, what I'm going to toss into the arena is that a non-attorney professional should really be in the mix and helping coordinate those efforts. I've spent a lot of time with associates. I just love young people, and I love working with them and helping them kind of, you know, decide how to navigate the really complicated culture in law firms. And what I recently, even recently, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I'm hearing is mentorship's a real problem. You know, environment, culture, work-life balance, everything that Laura just said. And so, you know, I think a lot of firms are doing this already. They're planning lunches, they're planning social events. And I would take it a step further. I think practice group meetings and practice group gatherings and focus on specific topics, whether it be education about client base or, you know, focus on how to develop your own business. Very focused time together. So that's I know a big ball of a lot, but I think adding to that, communication and transparency, very, very important for retention. Partnership track, what's involved in achieving partnership, being very clear. And sometimes firms, it's so subjective that it's hard to be clear, but finding ways, and again, finding a conduit who can help really explain that to associates and train them about business and business development and how to analyze their statistics and their reports and what that means to partners, I think is a key to the future. And I want to coin a phrase of creating a chief associate officer. You know, we have chief talent officers, but I'd love to see, you know, somebody in a role specifically to kind of bridge the gap between partners today and associates and the culture that we're seeing.
It's a really good point. You know, it's Michelle, everything you're saying, like, because I sit in mid-sized firms, like I agree with you. And like one of my big pet peeves is I go into the office sometimes and it's me and 3 associates and there are no partners to be found. And I'm like, well, why am I here kind of thing? And I get it, but, and they really want the associates there. And then the associates, they say they want to be, mentored, all the things Laura's saying, but how are you doing that if you're not coming in? And I know a firm is giving stipends to lawyers to come into the office during the summer because they have summer associates, and it's pretty bad form if everyone's remote except for your summers and your admin folks. So I also just want to say, like, for the treat your non-lawyers the same way, because we are leaving firms in droves as well. So there's a real talent issue on that front too. But I think it's a point well taken. The chief, some firms are bigger firms have, coaching, a coach or business development coach or an associate sort of like liaison. But with mid-sized firms, sometimes that person is the HR director who is doing like CLE programs and doing recruiting and doing HR and benefits. And so I think an advocate for those associates and professional development and all those things is really important, to your point, Michelle.
Yeah, and I'll just one last word on that is I think the burnout is real and impacting how we move forward. And I don't have the answers, but we have to figure out how to get people to kind of shift and move out of that.
Yeah, and I think we need to do it soon, because listen, I know people don't go, salary isn't the be all end all, but if there's a difference between burning out and making 290,000 versus 190,000, they may choose to go and make that more money. So that's something to think about. So Joel, let's talk to you a little bit about what your thoughts are on the data and in general, life in general. No, just tell us what you're thinking.
I wish you were going towards life in general, but all right. So what I think was, it was really interesting, and it supports a lot of my thinking as well, which is that, money's not the be all end all, it matters. Mm-hmm. And I think that also creating all sorts of incentive structures for attorneys so that they could achieve rewards based on certain criteria, I think are really important. In other words, in a small firm, you want everyone to be somewhat entrepreneurial. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go out and get business, but they can be entrepreneurial in a whole bunch of ways to make sure that the business succeeds. And I think from my perspective, that's important too. But work-life balance is super important. And I think that we have to be respectful of that. One of the things that we try really hard to do, for example, is when someone leaves the firm, they leave for a vacation. They leave a vacation memo, and really, really, we want them to go off the grid as much as possible. We want the time off to really be time off for people, because otherwise, in this world where everybody could stay so connected, what does time off really mean? And so I think that that's an important thing that really is a cultural thing. And I also find that we look closely at our values and we lean on them. And it's important for us to, to kind of live them and not like just have them painted on the wall, and talk about them and refresh them and get people involved with them and make people understand that this is what it's all about. And part of that is, everybody respecting each other as human beings. But I think that some of the issues connected to where people are working, I heard about the mentorship issues, whether people are coming back into work, who's coming back into work. If you're demanding support staff and juniors come, but the seniors aren't coming in, then what good is it? I think those are big issues. I really do. And I think that we're kind of, and I don't think it's just affecting law. I think it's affecting the workplace in general, especially in all service professions, where you've got companies that still haven't completely figured out what the post-COVID landscape is going to look like. How often are you going to come in? What does hybrid really mean? We're also paying people a lunch to come in for the days that they come in, or, encouraging people to come in on specific dates, and looking at redesigning certain office space to accommodate what we think are going to be the future. And we have a boutique firm that generally has pretty experienced lawyers. So working remotely is less of a challenge for us than some others. Nonetheless, we've taken to creating operational handbooks and systems so that mentorship and things like that become more fluid processes. So it's very, very important in this new world that we're entering here, that some of these challenges be really thought about carefully. What does that office look like? For us, I spend a lot of time thinking about your alternative fee arrangements and the data around that, because that's been a cornerstone of our profile, is that, we've moved towards our growth is in subscription. As a law firm, we're also developing an ancillary business as a training company, which dovetails into the holistic approach we're taking towards clients. The interesting thing, though, is that when I started really thinking about subscription in about 2016 as being like something that we should go really into heavily and focus less on litigation audits and those kinds of crisis type practices. Although, like I said, we still have plenty of that. I thought of it as a good thing for us as a business. I thought of it as a good thing, obviously, for the client. I thought the clients would like it a lot, and they have. And that was really the primary driver. But I didn't realize that perhaps the most important component of it was that the attorneys really enjoyed working in it, because they thought that they had the best of both worlds, because they got to be working in an in-house capacity, but still within a law firm. So they had the variety that they liked from a law firm, that they're not just working for one client, that they were in-house, but there was an in-house component there. And we weren't looking at hours as the be all end all. We're looking at revenue managed and other types of things. So efficiencies are what we're looking for, not necessarily people just churning hours or doing what the practice has been accused of for so many years. And so and I think the other thing is that within a subscription model, you create something that's a real partnership between the attorneys and the clients. They feel like you have more of a seat at the table. And I think the clients like it, but I really think the attorneys like that feeling. And so for us, that's been a big plus. And I think that honestly, it dovetails nicely into a work-life balance play as well. So, there's a lot of things I could talk about connected to subscription. I will say that, in your slide, I saw flat fee pricing come right before that. And I think that flat fee pricing, I think pricing is a difficult component in all of this. And I think that it's something that really comes with some experience in having a practice for a long time. We've been, our law firm's been around for 24 years. But I think you have to almost get good at flat fee pricing before you could get good at subscription pricing, because one tends to blend into the other.
Mm-hmm. Do you, it's really, the whole subscription thing is very, very interesting to me. I wanted to get to the data part of this, because the program is about, we said data, and I want to talk about how each of you use data or don't use data, or how you think mid-sized firms can use data more effectively, either for recruiting, marketing, whatever it is, general business goals. So Michelle, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I love data, and I, use it in, so just talking about mentoring and analyzing where people may need help. Looking at write-offs on bills is a great way to identify where people may need additional training. You can see that a particular attorney has a lot of time written off, or a particular task, if you're using task codes and things like that. It's great data to really analyze, where you should be focusing your training efforts. Another way to use data is also by practice group, workflow. And this is part of a diversity, equity, inclusion, effort to improve. Looking at who's getting the work, when they're getting the work, what type of work are they getting junior work? Are they getting senior work? Are they getting work based on their skill level and appropriate work? checking to see if associates are getting paralegal work and their rates are being written down because it's not attorney level work. So data can be sliced and diced so many different ways, and you can utilize it to improve, your associate performance, your utilization, and hopefully eventually your realization. I use data, asking our finance department for top, revenue by clients, and then taking a look at how we're utilizing, what are our rates. So I love data, and I think there's just about any story you need told, you can take a look at the data and find out what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. However you want to support your story, sort of can use data. It can be a little overwhelming sometimes, and I think that can be where my issue falls with analysis paralysis. Joel, as a boutique firm owner, where do you see data fitting into helping you, or now or in the future?
Well, no, first of all, I'm a stat person, so I like statistics, I like data, and I always find the results surprising. So it's interesting to me too. But it's not just internal. We like to get data. We do a lot of surveys on things we're doing, what clients are interested in, what they want to hear about. So it's external just as much as internal. So we really, but like, for example, internally, if the new office world is changing, well, what do people want? How often do they want to be in? Where are they looking? The things we were talking about before. What exactly are some of the work-life balance concerns? What types of work really excites different attorneys? What motivates people? But I think that we're also, like I said, we're looking externally quite a bit of data, because I think that we're a business, so we still want to know what our customers are thinking at all times about us and about the legal practice in general and what kind of services that they want. But I think that I saw some of your data, and I always want more.
Yeah. Let me ask each of you, what are you outsourcing, if anything? Joel, can I start with you?
Oh, plenty. We've outsourced CFO, COO, CMO, and we also have someone that also does some personality profile testing for us too. That's a relatively new ad. She actually, one of the things that I just want to mention is she was somebody that was, she helped run a retreat we ran recently, because people are a little spread out now, and getting people in with retreats. I see that as something going forward as being a big thing for all companies where people are working in that hybrid world. So we wanted to kick it off with her doing some things. And so, yeah, but we're there's no way a boutique can do everything itself.
Yeah, no, especially at a small or mid-sized firm. Agree. Michelle, what are you outsourcing, if anything?
Yeah, Joel, I'm curious, is that Paula Vayas that you worked with
No.
Oh, it's great. The personality profiling and helping teams, match up great teams is just a great effort. So what I'm outsourcing CMO, and Stefanie's doing a great job for us. I love working with her. And I want to mention, mid-sized firms aren't considering contract attorneys enough. And so that's in particular, as we have these deficits in particular in corporate, again, attorneys can sometimes say that contract attorney, why are they a contract attorney? Well, you don't know their life circumstance, and they just may be burnt out and only want to work 20 hours a week, but they have incredible skill. So don't discount, creative solutions to problems. And of course, we've outsourced, temp help and records teams, and, various different, work processing. So there's just different ways to outsource successfully from the top of the organization down to the, lower levels.
Yeah,
we do at some of the administrative level as well.
Yeah, I would just mention also like CRM function, data quality stuff that can be outsourced as well. And it could be, listen, you can do all the webinars in the world, send out all the client alerts, but if the right people aren't getting them, it's for nothing. So there's the companies that outsource that. There's a question from the audience, and I know we're out of time, so I just want to get to this question. Can you talk about how to use data to proactively recruit people leaving big law? So anybody want to take that one? Laura, maybe.
Yeah. So, well, what we look at when we work with law firms is to try to show them how they can create a successful narrative to go back and talk to the candidate. You can't just say, we're a great firm, we have a great culture, it's a great place to be, right? Because everybody says that, everybody feels that way. But data can actually show them what they're interested in. You know, what kind of law do they do, and in what office? Is that office growing? Is it declining? Is it doing well? You comparing your offer against where they are currently, you can find some really great nuggets to help them decide to make the leap, and do it with data instead of just anecdotal stories and, you know, the same line that everybody says. So data can really be used to persuade a candidate to look at another firm or join another firm. And that's one reason why we've written reports that do just that. Data helps support that argument, or helps support that supposition that they would be better off at your firm than where they are currently.
Okay.
I'll add a quick comment on that also. And this was mentioned in Laura's slides, you know, really offering a more competitive partnership track and identifying what the metrics are to achieve that really would be a useful tool in recruiting from big law. In particular, they're going to start getting burnt out now that they've made the big bucks and working a ton of hours. There's going to be a potential shift. And if there is a recession, they may want to land someplace safer, because, you know, there's a lot of theory out there that big law is going to, you know, maybe let go some of the lower levels because they don't have enough work. And then the last thing I'll mention is be kind to your recruiter friends. Invite them in and talk about your firm, have them meet leadership. Too often I see recruiters are treated disrespectfully, and it's just such a shame, because they really are the foundation of, they're sending you candidates, like, you know, win them over and let them know why someone wants to work, you know, should work at your firm.
A great point, Michelle. I've also seen mid-sized firms sometimes nickel and dime recruiters and not want to pay the fees, and they're not going to get the candidates. It has nothing to do with what you're paying the candidate. It has to do everything with your relationship with that recruiter, because you need to be competitive today if you want those candidates. So I'd like to ask each of you for a final sort of takeaway for the audience in terms of, you know, any advice you have for those at mid-sized firms or who work with mid-sized firms on what the rest of the year may bring, or just in general about how to better position your firm. So Joel, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we all have to always think about is laws of business. And we're in a business now, and the business universe uses data. They use information as much as possible. So for us to keep our head in the sand and not realize that there's massive changes rather out there, and that we have to be familiar with them and understand really how the landscape is shifting, I think would be naive. And I don't think we want that. So I think what you guys are doing is great, and I'm happy to be a participant here. And I thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, Michelle, any final words?
Yeah, I think this is fabulous, and I appreciate Laura and her data, and it just really helps show, you know, what you can glean from all of the statistics. I encourage firms to be creative and think differently. And sometimes mid-market firms, it's harder to do that. And that's where my plug will be for, you know, you're seeing more and more COOs pop up, and that's a good thing, because they're going to think strategically and creatively to help move forward.
Could I just comment on that for 1 second too? I just want to echo that, which is, I think one of the advantages of being in a smaller place as opposed to a huge firm is that you can change a little bit easier. You know, a sports car makes a sharp turn a lot easier than a tractor trailer.
Oh yeah, totally. Pivoted. Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. I've been able to bring things to market much quicker. One of the things that really bugs me about mid-sized firms is that they discount what great places they are, like in terms of everything but price. Like I never want to see a small or mid-sized firm lead with the pricing as being the key differentiator. It needs to be about quality of service, small client teams,
Yep.
The fact that you are niche focused. There's so much that mid-sized firms can offer. So don't lead with pricing. And my final word of advice would be, don't stop marketing and don't stop recruiting, even when you think you don't need these things, even when things are going well, because anything can happen. And that's what we've seen. And do an alumni relations program, even if it's 2 key groups of folks, but you need to maintain contact with your alums, even if you have 2 or 3. Laura, anything, we'll end with you. Anything you'd like to say as a parting word of wisdom?
Well, I just want to echo what I said earlier, what Michelle just did, is think
differently.
Think differently. Differentiate yourself in the market. You're not big law. Don't behave like big law. And there can be great benefits in showing those differences.
Yeah. Use also your geography to your benefit. A lot of mid-sized firms are in great geographic locations, and not everybody wants to go into Manhattan or to San Francisco. You know, if you are in a suburb, use those to your advantage. Find your competitive advantage and use that in recruiting, in marketing, and in client relations, every facet. So I want to thank everybody for joining us on this beautiful summer day, at least here in the Northeast. This webinar will be available on replay. You'll be able to see it on our YouTube channel. Do subscribe to us, follow all of us on LinkedIn, connect with us, and we'll be taking a month off in August. As many people are, you can watch some of our older webinars, but we will be back in September, October, November, December with lots of great webinars. So TBD. Thank you so much, Michelle, Laura, and Joel for joining us. Thank you, Phil, always behind the scenes technical help. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the speaking circuit too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.